what we were discussing, what is our topic, and what specifically we've discussed, just to help everyone else to catch up. Anyone wants to share? Those who have been?
So yesterday, Maharaj, you talked about in terms of duties and our natures. If we have a specific nature, like Brahminic or Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra nature, then it's easier to sort of identify our role,
Okay.
or nature, or our purpose in life, in Krishna consciousness. But generally, people have mixed roles, or mixed natures, sorry. So there may be some Brahminic or some Kshatriya, some Vaishya. And you gave an example of Prabhupada, how predominantly it was Brahminic nature, but there was also this Kshatriya spirit, and the Vaishya, because he was...
Vaishya experience.
Experiences, right. And that combination, especially for Prabhupada, worked extraordinarily well, because he achieved things which nobody has ever achieved, unbelievable things, in Krishna consciousness, because he utilized all of those natures in Krishna consciousness. So then you gave practical example of how we can identify perhaps our own natures to help us focus our abilities and our efforts in Krishna consciousness once we've identified that. And the one way you showed us how we can identify is giving us idea in terms of what animal our nature predominantly is geared towards, right? So resembling, that's the word. And this is Shastric in one sense, because in the Shastras many times the examples is given of animal-like behavior from a devotional point of view. So for example, devotees are compared to swans, and karmis may be compared to crows. And then there was other examples that come more. So then you challenged us to check out our natures according to which animal we might be associated with closely. And some were able to do that, some were not able to do that.
Good, thank you. Excellent memory. Haribo.
Excellent class, that was unique. And this is you, Maharaj. Every time you give something unique. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't want to be boring. All right, anyone else wants to add anything we've discussed?
The previous class, we spoke about the 5 L's.
That's right, okay.
We learned, and I forgot on the 3 Kaliki memory.
Yeah, 5 most important L's. We're starting with L in our lives. First is to live as opposed to exist. Then love means to have personal, perfect relationships with others as parts and parcels of Krishna. Then learn, because Vaishnava means Brahmana, meant to be learning whole life. And no, actually 4 L's. And 4th one is leave a legacy, which is the most important one. It's like one man says, who will cry after I die? How many people will cry after I die? Maybe some will be crying out of joy. Who knows? But the most important thing is that after I die, what will be there to benefit the world, to benefit other people, right? What do I leave behind? So legacy is really, really important thing for us to focus on. And again, we can see Prabhupada's example, that he left so much of very highly valuable legacy behind, right? Temples, disciples, books, so many things. And so he is expecting us to follow in his footsteps.
What is the first term Mother listed?
Live as opposed to exist.
Live.
Live. L-I-V-E.
Live your life.
Okay.
Live as opposed to exist. Not leave. Live. Live, love, learn, and leave a legacy. All right? Yes.
Spoke about pranamai.
Okay, 5 panchakosha. Yes. Panchakosha. Panchakosha, yeah. 5 levels of consciousness. Anamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Jnanamaya, and Anandamaya.
When you compare them with pranamai.
Yeah. That basic, very primitive level is like children, Anamaya, only interested in food. And this is like Shudra level, only interested in consumption. Right? Then Pranamaya, give and take, Vaishya level. Then Manamaya, level of Dharma, this is Kshatriya level, only giving, not worrying about taking. And Jnanamaya, that's Brahminical level, not worried about material things, but guiding people spiritually. And then Anandamaya, that is Vaishnava level, connecting people to the Supreme Lord. And yeah, the higher level you are, all the benefits of the lower levels are available. So we're supposed to be on the topmost level, which is a challenge to do it right. Bhakti Rasayana also mentions interesting things, that 4 varnas can be identified by the way they earn. That is salary, profit, taxes, and donations. All right. So we'll be continuing with the same subject. Thank you for reflecting on what we've discussed. And I hope this subject is interesting and relevant for everybody. Yes? And we were also mentioning yesterday the point, which I think is also important, that we can advance in Krishna consciousness only if we fully engaging our material nature in Krishna's service. Because Bhagavad Gita stresses that we're supposed to be acting without being attached to the fruits of our work, right? Everybody knows. So how do you do it? How do you stop thinking about the results? Because results are meant for enjoyment, right? You think about the results because you think of the enjoyment associated with the results. And there is only one way how to stop thinking about the results and enjoyment associated with it, and this is to enjoy the activity itself. If you enjoy doing what you do, you don't have to worry about the results because you're already happy in the process, rather than being miserable in the process and thinking of the future happiness. Everyone heard of tomorrow which never comes? Yeah? So this is how it is. Or I don't know if this is Prabhupada gives this analogy of, Mahaprabhu is also here, very well, of the donkey and the carrot hanging in front of donkey's mouth, right? So this is how stupid it is, like acting for the sake of the fruit, and like you work, and this carrot is, not really achievable. And so this is material life, and that's why the shifting, Prabhupada explains that in the purport of the 10:10, one of the key verses, Teshanta Satadviktanam in Bhagavad Gita. So he says that on the intermediate stage, devotee is enjoying service itself. But on the mature level, devotee is enjoying real loving relationship with Krishna. So materialistic level is, act for the fruit. But Krishna consciousness means you enjoy doing what you do for Krishna. And by that, you can develop your real Krishna consciousness. So this is how important it is. Act according to your nature. Because only if you act according to your nature, only if you do what you were born for, you can enjoy it. And if you do it for Krishna, you can do it excellently because you can put your heart into it. And you will enjoy and Krishna will enjoy. Because Krishna is our Father. He doesn't want us to be miserable. He wants us to be happy. Right? And devotional service is meant to be Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. So that's an important point, I think. So we will continue. We'll read another verse, which is chapter 18, the conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. And so we'll be reading text 48. Yeah. Let's chant the invocational mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sahajam karma kantaya sadoshamapi natyajet sarvaramba hidoshena dumenagni-rivavritaha. Every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In conditioned life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a Brahmana, he has to perform sacrifices in which animal killing is necessary. Similarly, a Kshatriya, however pious he may be, has to fight enemies. He cannot avoid it. Similarly, a merchant, however pious he may be, must sometimes hide his profit to stay in business, or he may sometimes have to do business on the black market. These things are necessary, one cannot avoid them. Similarly, even though a man is a Shudra, serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master, even though it should not be done. Despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. A very nice example is given here in, although fire is pure, still there is smoke, yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Even though there is smoke in the fire, fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahmana, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahmana there are no unpleasant duties. One may then conclude that in the material world, no one can be completely free from the contamination of material nature. This example of fire and smoke is very appropriate in this connection. When in wintertime one takes a stone from the fire, sometimes smoke disturbs the eyes and other parts of the body, but still one must make use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point, when a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects of that in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. So that's the idea. We need to act according to our nature and be purified by that, and then we can become Krishna conscious. Sahajam karma kontaya sadosham apinatyajat sarvaram bhahi doshana dumenagnit ivarita. Every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work which is born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So, faults. This is what we are worried about, right? Because Krishna consciousness means perfection, but Bhagavad Gita is very realistic that as long as we are in the material world, there will be faults. There will be problems, right? Problems are guaranteed. It says that if you don't have any problems, then most probably you're already dead. Only dead people have no problems. And who said that? Einstein said that if you never made a mistake, probably you never tried anything new in your life, right? Because every time you try something new, you are bound to make mistakes, right? And so this is very important for us that failures are pillars of success, right? And so we should not worry about failures, we should not worry about faults. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should not try to avoid faults, but understand that no matter how hard you try, there will be some faults, there will be some problems. It's as long as material world is there, it will be there. And one problem which faults create for us, if we are worried about these faults, because it's kind of natural tendency to be faultless, right? but then it turns into paralysis through analysis. You heard this one, right? There is a very interesting saying that don't be afraid of doing something you are not familiar with. Always remember that the Ark was built by a layman and Titanic was built by professionals. So, yeah, that paralysis through analysis. It's very interesting that I came across this thing myself. You know, we've started, some of you know about this school in Mayapur. Now we renamed it. It was Lead School. Now we renamed it into Ideal School. And because one very important word was missing, which is innovation, right? Because every time we were saying leadership, empowerment, and development, people were asking, oh, are you training ISKCON managers? This was not the purpose of the school at all. But once we put the word innovation in the title, then everything became clear what the school is about. So IDEAL stands for Innovative Development to empower authentic leadership. And so, which is ideal. So I've started the school and I had no idea what I'm doing. And after a couple of years, some professionals came on board and they were saying, okay, this is how it should be done properly. And now I'm like cracking my head trying to figure out how to make it right. Yeah, it's like next to impossible. And I'm thinking, anyway, it's running already. If we can improve, we can, but it doesn't mean that we'll stop and, you know, not resume it until it's perfect. We'll just run it. And you can see that Srila Prabhupada created ISKCON. He was hoping for something, but then he said, you know, Krishna gave him much more than he hoped for, way more than he hoped for, even though it was not ideal at all. There were so many problems. And so, yeah, even though our school is called Ideal, but it's not ideal. But this is the material world. Very interesting, right? That when Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not the Croydon Mahaprabhu, when he humbled Keshava Kashmiri by defeating him, and all his students were laughing, and Mahaprabhu said, it's not good to laugh because he is the greatest poet on the planet. He's one of the greatest poets in the world's history. And the fact that there are faults in his poetry is not at all surprising. If you analyze every single poem and every single poet, was, you know, like all their poems, like Chandidas and many other, Jayadev, he said even their poems were full of faults if you minutely analyze it. But he said the greatness of their poems and, you know, the advantage of their poems are so overwhelming that all those faults have to be considered negligible. So that's material world. But because we are trying to be idealistic, we, start worrying about problems too much, and then you get this paralysis through analysis. You cannot move, right? And that's not good, because we are the Hare Krishna movement, and unless we move forward, the purpose is not fulfilled. And so we have to move on, no matter what, no matter how imperfect we are and what we do. And sometimes, ignorance is very helpful because many times new things, successful things, were done by the people who failed to understand that these things are impossible. That there is a story, right, about two frogs. They fell into the well, into the dry well, right? And there was no water, so these frogs were kind of, meant to die. And they tried to kind of jump out of the well, but it was too high, and they couldn't reach. And they were jumping and jumping, and other frogs were at the outer edge of the well, and they were saying, "There is no hope, there is no hope, stop, exhausting yourself. There is no point, you will not be able to, leap out of the well." And so one frog gave up and just sat at the bottom of the well. But the other frog kept jumping and jumping and jumping, and all the frogs outside were shouting, "What are you jumping for? Stop this, you'll just exhaust yourself before dying." And this frog was jumping, and was jumping higher and higher and higher, and finally jumped out of the well, and the other frog died. And all the frogs, they were asking, what happened? And then it was discovered that that frog was actually deaf. And through the sign language, they found out that this frog, because it was deaf, it couldn't understand that they were shouting, "Stop jumping." That frog was thinking they were encouraging her to jump higher. And then this frog jumped out of the well. Like that. So, and we know this, how it works, right? How many of you had this experience that even if something is not very hard, very difficult, but if you're discouraged, you lose inspiration and you cannot do it? Yeah, you had this experience. But then the opposite is also true. Even if something is very difficult, but then if you have a supportive environment and people kind of, encouraging you to carry on, even difficult things become easy. Anyone had that experience? Yeah. And so this is really important. And you don't get, we wish it would be nice to have a supportive environment. And of course it's good. And we're saying, the laws of karma are still active in Krishna consciousness, but these are not material laws, these are spiritual laws, Krishna karma, right? And so what goes around comes around. If we help and support and encourage the devotees, what kind of results we'll get? Same results, right? somebody else will help, somebody else will support and encourage us. And so that's why we kind of serve the devotees, but it's actually quite selfish, right? Because we know that we'll get a lot of benefit from that. But unfortunately, it's not always like that. We are not always encouraged or supported, right? And that's why it's really important for us to be self-motivated. How many of you would like to be self-motivated and unaffected by these circumstances? Okay, good. Then one thing which is important for us is to work on our consciousness. You know, Prabhupada was saying, we heard that first become conscious, then Krishna conscious. And one of the biggest problems human beings have, all human beings, is called limiting beliefs. And especially for spiritual people, it's really important that, because we kind of meant to be believers, right? So we understand how important beliefs are. And so sometimes you have limiting beliefs which actually stop you from achieving your success in life. And success is important in Krishna consciousness, and we'll be discussing and practicing that as well. But since today's subject matter is faults and how we should not be worried about faults, then we should look at our limiting beliefs. And what is the formula of limiting belief? I can't. Right? It's like Prabhupada was referring to some comic picture that wife tells the husband, chant, 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 and husband responds, can't. Yeah, can't. Limiting belief means we think we are not able to do something. We don't believe in our own capacity, in our own ability, which actually is not true. And so, in order to understand how to become free from the limiting beliefs and lift the bar, lift the limitations, let's invite some volunteer. How many of you do have limiting beliefs, and how many of you kind of have this negative self-talk on regular basis, and how many of you tend to drag yourself down? Anyone here? Okay. Anyone wants to get rid of that tendency? Okay, good. Not everyone? Let me see the show of hands. How many of you want to get rid of that tendency to drag yourself down. Okay. So then we need one volunteer, and who is brave enough to kind of tell what is your limiting belief. You know, what is your negative self-talk? What are you telling yourself which makes you very unhappy and depressed? And then we'll try to help you to become free from that. Okay, Nitin Prabhu.
Fear.
Huh?
Fear.
Fear. Anything specific?
No, just fear of taking risks or
Well, I mean,
initiatives.
certain fear is good. Like, we should be fearing of losing Krishna consciousness or offending the devotees. It's not that all fear is bad. But we're talking about, say, like negative self-talk. That anything specific which, you know, you tell yourself, which is dragging you down. If you are engaged in any type of self-bashing,
Yeah.
maybe something happened sometime and then you know, kind of.
No, I mean, when you, like doing the preaching service or doing some work which is beyond your normal boundaries, you might upset people and, create that fear that, there might be a reaction, so that holds you back. But then when you think about it, it was just yourself holding yourself back. Because I got involved in so many challenges with politics and all that kind of thing, and so you get these kind of things.
Yeah, we need something little bit more specific. You know, this kind of self-bashing or limiting belief or negative talk is, I'm not good in something, right? I'm not good, I'm bad, I'm horrible, I'm this and that. This is what we're talking about. So anything in this regard?
Yeah.
Nothing. You're not saying yourself, I'm not good in.
No,
Okay, then that's good. Okay, Jason.
An example is that I'm fearful of losing Krishna consciousness.
Well, it's a good fear.
Yes.
You don't have to get rid of that.
Because the only brahmachari in the temple, and I have to go out in a week. In the morning, come back in the evening. It's like kind of scary sometimes. It's like you walk around South London and it's like the only brahmachari. Get all sorts of people coming towards you for many different reasons. And it can take like one tiny mistake to have like a big change.
I think this is not exactly what we're talking about. So the formula for self-bashing is, I am not good, I'm bad, I'm horrible, I'm this and that.
Like, I'm trying to be progress as much as I can, but every day I have this thought that I won't be able to do, I won't be able to reach the goal I want to reach, because there's so many things, and when I see other elevated people, and I think, oh, I've started so late, first of all, and secondly, I don't think I have that kind of strength, so I'm thinking negative of myself. I feel like I won't be able to,
Okay, what's the formula? I'm not good in what?
in connecting myself with Krishna, so I'm not good enough. Sometimes I think, why will he look at me? There's so many other, good people around.
Okay.
or more elevated, more.
Okay, I'm not good enough because I've started late and um,
And
I'm,
sometimes I
I'm
get
not advanced devotee.
disturbed by other material stuff, you know. I want to watch TV, I want to
Okay.
do shopping, or, you know, my. So I say, okay, only this thing I'll buy, then, you know, I'll become boss. But but then sometimes the thought comes, no, I have to be serious. So it's like, you know, every day juggling myself. I do my chanting, I have to do it. But my mind is not like fully on chanting as well sometimes, you know, most of the time.
Okay, I'm not good because I'm weak. I'm influenced by material desires. Okay, I think this is
Good example.
pretty widespread. So, um, anyone anyone knows how to get rid of that? Nobody knows how to get.
Strong association of devotees.
For yourself, we are talking about being self-motivated. Association with devotees is good, but you need to be self-motivated as well. And so, how do you become self-motivated? Instead of looking at the shortcoming, you look at the advantage. And so, can you please remind your name again?
Seema.
Seema, okay. So Seema is thinking, okay, I am lacking in this, right? But then if I ask her, are you always lacking? Are there moments when you are not lacking? So what are the moments? Can you tell us the moments when you are not lacking and when you're really enthusiastic and you're happy to chant or to do any devotional activities and you're not worried about any material distractions? Can you give us the example of that situation?
When everything is going good in the family, everybody is happy, not, you know, sometimes I'm like half of the time worried, my son is not doing this, my daughter should be doing this, my husband should, you know, but if everybody is like one day, like everybody is doing good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they're listening to us, we are cooperating with each other basically.
Okay.
So, and sometimes, you know, my daughter, she does kirtan at home most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the time it kind of brings positivity at home, you know, of saying
Okay.
that, you know, and sometimes when I get up in the morning and do my chanting, I feel my whole day has gone good.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
but most 99% of the time it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, I mean, I want to establish that, you know, get up in the morning and do chanting, but I don't know, something happened and.
Yeah. For now, we are focusing on not those 99%, but 1% of when it's going good. Because this is what you want to see, right? The bright spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important to shift our attention from, you know, the rest of the stuff to the bright spot. Because if you see the bright spot, you can understand the pattern and you can see the way out of, you know, how to, if you understand how 1% works, you can turn around all the 99%, right? So it all depends on the relationships in the family, right? And how well the family members, other family members are performing, right? So what can you get from that? what kind of conclusion you can make from this?
Try to
Hmm?
get up early in the morning and try to do chant. And try to focus on chanting repeatedly.
Yeah, but if you understand that your chanting and your focus is very much depending on your family members, how well they are doing, right? The atmosphere in the house. If the atmosphere in the house is conducive, then your own practices are good. If atmosphere in the house is not conducive, it affects your practices, right? So then, these things happen by, coincidence, good luck, whatever, that everything is good in the house and you're also doing good. But can you do something to make sure that it is good most of the time, or ideally all the time? Anything could be done?
No.
You think no?
Can't control them. Can't control the family members.
Okay, maybe your family members can help you. So
Actually, what's happening is we are still new to Krishna consciousness.
let's ask your family members if they are agree. Huh?
Amisha?
So we,
Yeah, please. Why not? Help your mother to understand what can be done. To make the atmosphere in the house more spiritual, more conducive.
be more cooperative.
Huh? To be cooperative. Can you elaborate?
Listen to her.
Now, what should she do to make sure that you cooperate?
Be nice.
Be nice to you. Yes?
That's it. You gotta make them talk it down.
So, is it helping you to understand something? Yeah, that.
No, what I was trying to say, every day some new problems come, and then I feel, how should I deal with this problem, or should I focus on Krishna consciousness? Krishna is testing me every single day. Something or the other, something happens.
Yeah. So you see the correlation between the relationship with your family members and your enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
In Krishna consciousness. So what can you do to have best possible relationships with your family members? And this is very interesting, right? Especially in devotee families, because if you have strained relationships with your family members, and because they are devotees, you lose Krishna's blessings. And you lose Krishna's blessings, you lose inspiration. And naturally, next thing is that material desires start coming. So that's why, as we were mentioning yesterday, everything is connected. And so, of course, familiarity breeds content, but it's very important, if our family members are devotees, to remember to, be very respectful and be very mindful of the fact that we're dealing with devotees, and if we do something which is displeasing to devotees, then Krishna is displeasing. displeased, and then we automatically lose enthusiasm. Yeah. So if you work on a relationship with your family members, if you consciously make sure that these relationships are very good, then automatically you will have inspiration.
Just speaking out loud, what Sima Mataji is possibly thinking. If I have to satisfy my family members, means I'm in the kitchen all day long, I'm not going to be able to chant.
Mm-hmm.
My spiritual life will go down the tube.
Okay.
So Maharaj, are you telling me that I have to just satisfy my family members and sacrifice my Krishna consciousness?
Of course, we have to keep balance, that we should make sure that we're not abusing anyone, but also not allowing others to abuse us. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that some qualities of devotees are Yasman not dijate loka, lokan not dijate chaya. That devotee is the one who is not disturbing anyone, but he is not disturbed by others also. So this is the balance we have to keep. Make sure that with our activities and with our words, we don't disturb people, but we should also make sure that other people, they don't disturb us. We remain undisturbed by their words or activities. So, and of course, it requires intelligence to keep the balance.